let's just say if we define success by academic results, right? Unfortunately, the reality is that people will not all score well. And so if we define success in society as getting good results, or even earning a lot of money, or even having a good job, then we are basically saying that, sorry, bottom 50% of society, you're just going to live a doomed, sad life, and I'll just condemn and give up on you. You try your best to climb up to the top 50%. But what we don't realize is that those on the top 50% continue to hold that as a stronghold, and they're not going to cede that position up because we've accepted this social hierarchy of above and below. And so that is one-dimensional, and when we live that way, we condemn others to sadness and whatever. So I think wellness and this multifaceted approach is more interesting because even if you might not score well in school, what are other areas that you can be strong in and better in? And I don't want to keep harping at you on your weakness. Just as like, if let's say you have a very rich and successful friend and they're not very good with social skills, sometimes we excuse that. We say, it's okay lah, he's very successful, he must know what he's doing. Then we excuse the poor behavior, we excuse the poor social skills and the rude behavior, right? But that's not holistic. And then we look at someone who is very socially amazing, but maybe not very hustle in their career, and we somehow see that as less in society. I wish we could equalize that a bit more. And I think if we do that, we can see that among our students also, that they don't have to be good at everything. They can be good at their strengths. Everything else, just try your best.
Hi everyone, I'm Divya, the founder of Forte360. We are a very young NGO who is supporting strength and self-worth of children, and we are trying to bring the ecosystem together to work towards this goal for every child in Singapore to thrive. So today we have a very special guest, which I respect a lot of his work and am a fan actually. So he's a person who's truly passionate about education, innovation, and social impact. And he tends to also build up his experience in design and game design in the education space as well. So he has been working in the youth career exploration and development since 2015 and created a school-based innovation space through Creator since 2020. So he's a very strong advocate for students' interests and strengths. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Louis. All right. So hi, Louis. Welcome to today's episode. So I think for our viewers, maybe you can share a little bit about yourself and share a bit about Creator and Praxium that you are leading.
My name is Louis. I run this organization called Creator. I also run a social enterprise called Praxium, but today we'll talk more about Creator. Creator, we're a school-based community space. So anyone from the outside, right, whether it's parents, alumni, people from the neighborhood, if they'd like to contribute to education and be part of the education experience, they can come to our community space to co-create that with us and with the school. But that said, it's not just anyone. We have to kind of like get to know them first. So it's not like you can just walk through the gate. In our space, we do our own work, we do our own admin, our own paperwork, but people can spend time with students and mentor them during their breaks and all that also.
Thanks for sharing. I think I for myself personally, I'm always I don't know if I told you, but I always am a huge fan of Creator and how it started, what is it trying to achieve, etc. Maybe you can share with people what motivated you to start Creator and what are you trying to achieve through Creator.
Okay. And I first started my work with the social enterprise called Praxium. We wanted to help young people to discover what kind of careers and future life they want to have. This whole effort came with wanting education to be a lot more student-centric. And if careers are one of the end outcomes that we want people to have, right, then we need to help get education to center on the young people's interests, to discover what they want. What we learned was that even though we might run a very good program for a day, that's 1 day out of 300 days of a school year, right? And any inspiration about being more innovative, being more tenacious and all that is diminished by every other day of being reminded you have to do your homework. You have to score better in your exams, you have to go for tuition class, you have CCAs and all these commitments. So all of your personal kind of aspirations are put aside for everything that a system might want from you. I think that was one observation that I had throughout the years from about 2015 to 2020. How Creator got started was because between 2017 and 2020, I was actually contracted by GovTech. So GovTech, if you don't know, they do all the government innovation stuff like Parking SG. They were commissioned by MOE on this project called the Classroom of the Future. So they wanted to design what the future of education would be like. And I was fortunate and very privileged to be able to be part of that project. So I was basically full-time at GovTech doing this project. We got access into schools such that we could observe classes, we could observe school environments for over a year. We would go in on a regular basis to interview teachers, students, observe classes, observe day-to-day occurrences in school. And it's quite striking because if you actually reflect on yourself, right, the last time you may have had that kind of access to a school was when you were a student. And things have changed. Some things have not. Some things that made sense in the past made less sense now. I still, for example, I would peek into the pigeonholes from the teacher's homework, right? And I'll peek and see like, oh, students are writing lines saying that I will remember to bring my textbook. I'll remember to bring my textbook. This is not that long ago. And I was quite surprised to see that. Besides that, when we interacted with a lot more teachers, we saw how busy they were. So we want to talk about well-being for students, right? It's not that it's not important, but teachers are measured on so many more things that needs to take priority. And not only that, but they got laden with more responsibilities like helping to guide and coach the students for their career aspirations. And that's when we also realized that for most teachers, it is their first job to be a teacher. And they've never worked in other jobs before, usually. So for them to guide the students, they were struggling because they didn't have that lived experience of what working in other sectors are like. What is it like going through a rigorous interview process and assessment center and so on? So they were struggling to give that guidance. And we thought, how do we deal with this situation without making teachers do more work? Because when we talk about, like, say, the career gap between school and the working world, the default from ministry was like, maybe we'll send the teachers for training. And that's the answer to almost everything. We send the teachers for training. Send the teachers for training. But every time you send the teachers for training, you have additional workload and responsibility on them. And they grew from having to do 10 things to having to do 50 things, right? And the quality of what you can do diminishes as a result. So our quick, I guess, solution was, how do we involve other people into the education experience? So that's where parents, alumni, other people that we know can come and co-create that learning experience within the school. And that's what we are still doing till today.
That's lovely. And also I like the point that you're also trying to solve, like, you know, that teachers' workload, right? Like, instead of keep asking them to focus on more things, how can you come in to support them to maybe address children's well-being? I think that's something worth to point out as well, because like a lot of times they have a lot of things on their plate, and like what you mentioned, like the quality might go down, especially when more tasks for them to do increases, right? So I'm also trying to understand, like, from your perspective, right, while working with children for a few years already, what are some common, like, well-being struggles that you have observed among children?
For context, our children are youth between about 13 to 16 because we are operating from a secondary school space.
We use the phrase youth instead.
Common issues. So they get to come into our space on a regular basis. They come in every recess break after school and so on. I think the biggest challenge I feel they face is that their interests are not taken seriously or are treated as unimportant. I won't belabor other types of well-being like screen use, device use, emotional, social stuff. But I want to emphasize particularly on the unique interests that students have. If we talk about careers, right? If you ask, a lot of youth will tell you they don't know what they want to be. But in casual conversations, they will end up talking about getting on social media. They're talking about content creation. They're talking about starting a business and so on. But they don't bring this up in a formal conversation about careers. Because they have had a lot of experience since their childhood being dismissed for their interests. So when a child says, I'm interested in this game, and every adult is telling you, no, cannot play games, you will get addicted and so on, you slowly learn that not to voice out what you truly want. And you learn to tell people what you think they want. So most youth will know that adults want them to say, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be an engineer. Then you get a pat on the back to say, good job, that's a great aspiration. But when you say, I want to be a content creator, a lot of adults will start to, they have a mixed reaction. And as a child, you don't want to get that kind of mixed reaction. So I think that's one challenging thing. Why this is such a big deal now is, for us, we differ slightly from a lot of other well-being organizations, because for us, we believe that well-being can come about from you pursuing the things that you're passionate about, that you love and you're interested in, spending time on it. And I find that a lot of education ignores that. We have chosen in our syllabus these 8-9 subjects that supposedly students should learn in secondary school. But the things that they naturally, organically interested, like say psychology, a lot of teenagers are interested in psychology. Could be because of well-being, but it could also be because they just want to understand people. But there isn't like a class about that. There isn't a choice for students to deep dive into that. And the funny thing is that now with the internet, a lot of things are possible. We can learn so many things if we choose to use the tool productively. But again, when the student ends up learning or seeing something on YouTube outside of academia and studies, right, we tend to think of it as they're just being distracted, they're just wasting time. But they're not. They're pursuing their interests. But they've also learned to define that pursuing interests as distractions, which is unfortunate.
Do you also think like it's actually is like equal or like importance is not given to children's voice? Like for example, when they share something, it's not treated important. They say, oh, maybe they are young, so they may not know what they're talking about. Like, do you think it's because of this mindset that maybe influence like maybe the people around them to brush off, their ideas and opinions?
Sure. I think it starts as small as a kid saying that, oh, check out this video or check out this thing that I did. And a parent who comes across as, have you done your homework? So that anything that you are bringing to me, I push it aside and I tell you my agenda. Same thing can happen in a classroom and a school environment also. The child might say that, oh, like check out this thing, or I want to do this thing for my CCA. But then the feedback is, but have you done all these other things? So the students' interests are always brushed aside and second priority to what the main agenda is.
With like, like this current focus of the education climate is still academic at the moment, right? Like the grades, with like well-being not like a graded thing, and also like there's character and citizenship, like CCE lessons. All these are not graded. You see, how would you encourage people to see well-being as equal as grades? When it comes to a school setting, or even when you are speaking to a child, like what is the need to change in our mindsets?
I'm not a like well-being expert, but one of the most useful experiences I've had about well-being is there's this exercise called a wheel of wellness or something. So they have these like 8 quadrants with different facets. And your emotional health is just one of the 8. The others could be things like finances, it could be things like social life, it could be space to pursue your interests. So I think it redefined well-being for me a little bit to see, because we tend to define success a certain way. And at least in the school environment, it's like good grades. But that's very one-dimensional. So I think the interesting thing for this wellness exercise is that by defining the many measures of wellness and health and a holistic achievement of them as success, that might be more productive. I think that's super important also, because let's just say if we define success by academic results, right? Unfortunately, the reality is that people will not all score well. And so if we define success in society as getting good results, or even earning a lot of money, or even having a good job, then we are basically saying that, sorry, bottom 50% of society, you're just going to live a doomed, sad life, and I'll just condemn and give up on you. You try your best to climb up to the top 50%. But what we don't realize is that those on the top 50% continue to hold that as a stronghold. And they're not going to cede that position up, because we've accepted this social hierarchy of above and below. And so that is one-dimensional. And when we live that way, we condemn others to sadness and whatever. So I think wellness and this multifaceted approach is more interesting because even if you might not score well in school, what are other areas that you can be strong in and better in? And I don't want to keep harping at you on your weakness. Just as like, if let's say you have a very rich and successful friend and they're not very good with social skills, sometimes we excuse that. He said, it's okay lah, he's very successful, he must know what he's doing. Then we excuse the poor behavior, we excuse the poor social skills and the rude behavior, right? But that's not holistic. And then we look at someone who is very socially amazing, but maybe not very hustle in their career, and we somehow see that as less in society. I wish we could equalize that a bit more. And I think if we do that, we can see that among our students also, that they don't have to be good at everything. They can be good at their strengths. Everything else,
that's lovely.
Just try your best.
Yes. It's how like success is unique to everyone, right? Like you define your own success. It's not the same as everyone. And I also like to understand, like, from creator point of view, I feel like you guys are doing different aspects of this, like to build like holistically for the children, right? So maybe can you share a story, maybe, that or like initiative that creator does to kind of pick up strengths in children through your work?
A recent project we did, right, was around parent-teacher conference. Basically, it's a regular or quarterly occurrence. Parents will come to school, meet with the teacher, and talk about how the kid is progressing in school. And that's what the meeting agenda is, right? Because we're in a school, we get to sit into these conversations. So I sit beside the teacher as they're meeting with the parents. And I see the conversations flow, as you might remember. You did well in these subjects. You didn't do so well in these subjects. Are you studying enough? And so on. And I noticed that after the meeting, parents will walk out with their kids. And parents, I'll overhear them saying things like, you see lah, I already told you to study harder. The teacher already said this and so on. And I wonder at the back of my head, is the next action by the parent to send the kid for tuition? So I wonder, systemically, are we driving the tuition sector by the way we conduct parent-teacher meetings? The job still has to be done. We still have to update parents on the progress. But how do we also do it in a rounded, holistic way? That was one question we asked. So last term, while the parent-teacher meeting was taking place, we set up a few stations in the school. One of it was called the gratitude wall. So as parents were leaving the school, we wanted them and their kids to write down what were they grateful for. So it could be your teachers who were supportive, it could be your friends who were there for you, it could be your parents who were supportive, or maybe your child for trying their best. So we got a number of parents and children who wrote those points. So parents who wrote, I'm very grateful for my child because I know they're always doing their best. Even if they might not always reach their result, I'll always be there for them. Then the child also wrote, I'm grateful for my parents because even when I struggle, they're still there, they still support me and so on. And the important part was this was not just for the family to do it, but for it to be publicly shown in the school space. Because parent-teacher meetings are a private affair. You have no idea what other parents talk about. So a lot of people walk away thinking that, oh, we got to work harder, we got to compete, we got to score better. But by making this gratitude very public, we shift culture a little bit to help everybody see that we're trying to be empowering and constructive. Another station we did was we got the students to write what are some character traits do you want to have when you are adult. Could be generous, courageous, adaptable, resilient, and so on. So they wrote these points and why they want to be this way. So that helps us to shift the conversation away from what inevitably happens in the parent-teacher meeting, where we discuss some of their shortcomings and areas for growth, academically especially. We redirect it to something more person-centric, more human-centric. That's one project that we did. I think it's quite interesting. We are sharpening this up, and our final version of this whole experiment will be how do we make parent-teacher meeting exciting and fun to attend? So that people look forward to getting feedback.
Even for parents and the kids, right?
Because right now, it's always, you always go
compulsory.
It's scary. You don't know what you're going to say. Parents might scold you, or you might get another new tuition class after the parent-teacher meeting. So we're trying to shift that whole experience around to be more child and growth-centric.
That's lovely. And I also like to point out, like, the gratitude wall. It's actually it's a very simple activity, but it's very powerful, especially when like even the children see when their parents are writing. Because in a normal context, I'm not sure about the rest, but like a normal context in Asia, we are not used to affirmation, right? We don't hear like, oh, you're doing great because of your strengths, you know? We are used to like never do homework, this kind of thing. So I think that's such a powerful initiative. Thanks for doing that. Let's deep dive a little bit into a community setting. Like, I would like to understand, like, you know, where do you see community partners like Creator, even Forte360, you know, coming in to support like the education space so that, you know, well-being can be more holistically achieved for the children? Because like what you mentioned earlier, teachers are stretched. You know, they can't keep doing everything. So where do you feel community can come in to support?
At our space, I think mentoring is one of the most prominent ways that community can support. Mentoring is, not sure how familiar most people are with mentoring as a process, but the most effective mentoring takes place organically. Meaning, it's not like we went for some mentoring program and I match you up with a mentor and then like I matchmake you guys and something good happens, right? The best mentoring takes place because you happen to know this person, you each take an interest in each other's lives, and you see whether you can give advice, support, resources, and connections for that. So in our space in the school, right, you can think of our space like the school's living room.
Okay.
In a living room, there is no strong agenda. It's just coexistence. And you get curious about each other. So as you get curious about what you are doing, what I'm doing, we have a conversation and we explore your interests. Where are you headed towards? What am I headed towards? How can I support you? And so on. So that's something that we have been facilitating within our space. I think that can be a very powerful way for community to be involved because everyone in our society has some expertise, has some experience. And that's something that can be shared with students. For teachers, their workload is very full up, so not much opportunity there. So if the community can come in, whether it could be, for example, stay-at-home parents. It could be, for example, people who are in between jobs. It could be people who are running their own freelance career kind of thing. Then they can be within the space and just park like 10 minutes, 15 minutes a day to have a conversation with a kid. And that can make a difference for the child. Because the kid's not going to be there the whole day just to engage you also. They also only got 10 to 15 minutes. But that short conversation can lead to a lot more.
And do you feel like, you know, when like community partners are still being treated as like vendors to like to like, you know, in schools, and how can we start changing or shifting such perspective? Because there's a difference between a partner, like what we can achieve, and just a person who comes in, do something and goes. So I just want to understand your perspective and how significant or how important it is for community partners to partner with schools.
My frank and a bit critical perspective is that many schools don't have a strong understanding for what being a partner means. And they see it as being a vendor. So in a partnership setting, you need to be aware of like what the other person wants and what the other person needs. There's some give and take and some compromise we got to do. Just think about life partner as an example. You're not going to get your way all the time. And sometimes you have to give something even though you don't get anything. So when schools expect that I just give you money, you just do what I need, that's not partnership law. But then when a partner comes in and says, I want to do these things, and if a school says it doesn't match our agenda, so I'm sorry, we cannot help you, that's not a partnership again. So you are constantly looking for vendors. You are not really looking for partnerships. The only way you will start to say it's a partnership is that if you want something and someone comes and offers it to you and they tell you you don't have to pay for it. And then the school will say, that's a partnership because you're giving me what I want. And actually the school doesn't know what they're giving. They're just getting something for free. And they're not very clear on what a partner's overall intent and objective is. I saw this recently also because in the school partnership that we do in our space, right? The school was partnering a community center to do a community outreach event. As I discussed with the school okay, sure, I can see what the students are getting. They're getting a chance to showcase their projects in public, gain confidence, engage with community to earn volunteering hours and so on. So I asked, are we doing this next year? And how do we meet the community center's objectives?
Their objective. Okay.
So when I asked about it, teacher mentioned that, okay, the objective is maybe some of the students will volunteer with the community center and do more volunteering activities after that. So I went to investigate. I went to the booth where the volunteer recruitment booth was, and I asked them, how can the students have any students volunteered? They say no. Then I asked them, how can the students volunteer? So they can scan this QR code, then you can sign up to volunteer. Throughout the whole event, I also noticed there wasn't any announcements by the school running this event to direct people to explore the volunteering or pull the CC up to announce what this volunteering entails. The next more shocking thing is that when I asked about the QR code and I scanned, they said you need SingPass to register.
Okay.
And we then started to identify a systemic gap there, which is the students don't have SingPass. They cannot volunteer. So these are things that if the school was very serious about the partnership, they would look out for this. From the community center side, they may not know that the students don't have SingPass. To them, that's how it happens.
Usually, like recruitment takes place.
So when you do a partnership setting, we need to be very clear what the other party wants also, and how do we support the other party. And I think that's what forms a good partnership. But that's very difficult in a school setting because people already feel like, I already got my own stuff to handle. Still need to think about some other person's stuff. So partnerships become very difficult. But you think about it in, again, a dating and like partner relationship, right? That's quite a unhelpful response, right? Like, I got too much on my plate, I cannot help you. And that takes place over months and over years. It's constantly, I got too much on my plate, I cannot help you. You're not a good partner in that case.
Understand. Okay. Thanks for sharing that. And I think it is also kind of like, it creates a barrier, right, for like community partners who really cares and like equally treats well-being or anything seriously as schools as well, to come in to support, right? But what do you think a change is needed to maybe like, okay, this is already a gap or like a challenge that it's facing. What's the change that needs to be done to remove this challenge or gap? Other than mindsets. That's why,
It's very hard to answer because I think a lot of this comes about from how, as educators in a school, they have a main job they're supposed to accomplish. Partners have what the partners are trying to accomplish. There's a tendency to just work in silos and not see that there's benefit to working together. It's funny because sometimes when I see organizations like yours and for ours and other friends we work with, we come from a very strategic lens. We're looking at macro data about societal trends and how ground behavior can shift to create that larger trend. But when we work with schools, very often we're working at an operational level. So whether it's the educators or sometimes the HODs, right? They're still looking at the operational level and not the societal level. So the way that partnerships often work is that the principals or the school leaders will assign partners to work with their staff. And as a result, things can never hit a strategic level.
It's about just meeting KPIs.
Right. I'm just trying to fulfill my job. Sometimes I feel like it's useful for partners to work directly with the principals and school leaders, and the school leaders need to commit and make time to that. Then change can happen. So for example, in one of the committee meetings I was in, a discussion was had about what kind of traits do we want our students to have as they graduate the school. Very meaningful question. An observer from ministry was sitting in and he asked the question of, actually a very good stakeholder to ask will be the affiliated JC. Because if this secondary school has certain development goals, we can track at the JC side whether we see that impact and that difference. that's a strategic conversation because you have to work across organizations and measure over years.
Yes.
At an operational level, I think the educators could understand, but they were not in the position or authority to bridge and make that happen because they are supposed to do an operational task of student development. And it wasn't something that a school leader was, he wasn't in that committee to have that meeting to drive the work there. So at most it goes up, right? And like it's a request made to the leadership. But I'm not confident that will happen.
Understand. Yeah.
So I think it's useful for school leaders to work directly with partners. Because the school leaders, I feel, have a better shot at understanding what partnership means.
Yes.
It's tougher for the educator on the ground to comprehend or execute partnerships.
I think that's very important that you brought that up because school leaders do play a very important part in shaping the whole culture in the school.
Yes.
And like setting the direction, and eventually the educators team and supporting team move towards that direction. And I think for Creator itself is in a school-based setting. Yeah. So like how did that like the leadership kind of contributed to how you have journeyed so far? Yeah.
I think the principal was very forward-looking.
Yeah.
I keep remembering this phrase he said, just trying to gather good men and women to contribute. That's his mindset. So he's almost like a team builder to rally people together. I think that's important, and he was able to see that serving others was also an important objective. This is a funny point because I bring up religion a little bit. The schools that we have had more success working with tend to be religious inclined or like Christian schools. I am not Christian myself. But it's interesting because when they think about partnership, serving community, serving the youth, there is a strong sense that it's very values-led. It's very much driven by, we believe in this is important, we need partners to come in to do this with us. Other schools, it is not as easy to get that. For regular schools, there's often a case of needing to justify, why should we help? Why should we do this? And that makes it a bit harder for partnerships to take place also.
Understand.
I don't want to like paint like religious or mission schools as the best, right? But it's something that we all can play, or any school can do.
Learn from. I'm also trying to understand, right, like your perspective when it comes to upstream support. Often like a lot of importance is given, to intervene only when a children or a child has a mental health challenge, like through counselors, etc. But in your perspective, especially through Creator's work, like how important is it for upstream support to start first to build in certain skills when it comes to children's well-being so that it can prevent, a more like lesser challenges in the long run?
We don't directly tackle this, but one thing that we do see is one thing that contributes to better well-being is your social network, your social support system, right? As a child and as a student, your natural environments are your class or your CCA. And there are good chances these days where you just don't find a good match within that class, within that CCA. Especially if you are a bit more divergent, whether neurologically or just socially. Or interest is a bit divergent. It's just tougher. So in a community set up space like we have in a school, right, it allows for these outliers to meet each other, and these outliers find some connection with each other. I think that is a doable thing, but you need to create a space where people feel comfortable to go there, and it won't be populated with just the popular kids.
That's nice. I want to try to understand your perspective. If there's one change, just one change that can be done to address children's well-being better in like the current education system, in your perspective, what would that be?
I think the important thing is to prioritize their interests, their fascinations. So, a personal story. I have always been interested in game design since I was like 4 years old. Playing games since I was very young. Back in those days, there's no such thing as screen time, so I spent a lot of days playing games. And I was fortunate that my parents were supportive. They were proud of the fact that I had an interest, that I liked games and they assumed that means I'm good with technology. It was an assumption.
Yeah.
But I grew to live up to that expectation because that's what they assumed of me, and I wanted to live up to that. What I learned from the Singapore system was that to get what I want, I need to get good grades and get to the school that allows me to study this. Alongside this whole thing, I was going to the library back in the day where we still go to the library.
Yeah.
I borrow books about like design, programming, Photoshop, and start doing a little bit on my own. But always at an amateur level. When I eventually went to university, I did game design classes and courses, right? And I was quite surprised because the professors told me that, okay, you can refer to these YouTube videos and all these online resources to learn the basics. Then that will equip you sufficiently to develop the game. And then you give me as your project, and then I'll give you feedback on your project. At that point in time, I thought, wow, I spent like 10 over years studying so hard to do something which I could have done way earlier.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough that I had the opportunity to learn alongside my formal studies. So I actually did learn Photoshop.
Okay.
I did learn how to code on my own since I was like 10 years old. And I always thought it was just a hobby side interest that didn't have practical value until I went to university and I was taking a class in like graphic design and Photoshop, right?
Okay.
And I was 10 years experienced already by then. And I could become the teaching assistant while being a student, pretty much. I was fortunate that my interests were taken seriously. And because of that, I had a strength that could be nurtured. I feel like we can't say the same for a lot of young people, that with less and less time given, more and more tuition that they're going for, their unique strengths and talents don't emerge as much anymore. And they reach quarter life crisis, right? Where they don't know what they want. Because what they've wanted has always been deprioritized. So if there's any change, I would like it's really for their interest to be taken seriously. At the secondary school level, there's this thing called student-initiated learning. There are a lot of gaps in the timetable now because of subject-based banding, where the secondary school students can take subjects at different levels. So there are a lot of gaps in timetable to accommodate that. And the ministry has assigned those times to generally be for self-directed learning. But it is highly unstructured and teachers don't supervise and mentor and guide the students on this. And I empathize because how can a teacher of like 40 students cater to the possibly 40 diverse interests that students have is really tough. And I think that's where we are able to come in to support better. We've supported students to learn how to build and fly their own drones, to build their own 3D computer simulation of planes and how it flies. These are the things that we've done, and I think community can support a lot. But we need to create the right conditions for that to happen. So yeah, I would really love for more interest, focus on the students' interests.
That's lovely. Thanks for sharing that. And I think I want to also hear from your perspective, right? Two perspectives actually. What's your hope that the community can come in to support the children's well-being in the space? And secondly, where do you feel Creator can come in to support, and what's your long-term vision that you hope to achieve through Creator?
The longer-term vision to me is that a school is not just for students. A school is for community, is for parents and so on. So at St. Andrews, there's a saying, once a saint, always a saint. So then it should be a case that you're always welcome back to the school. They should be able to always come back, and there's something that you can do, something you can gain, there's something you can contribute. We don't need more skills future courses out in the CBD area. You can just do it in a school. It's empty at night, it's empty on weekends, and it's right near your house. So if more lifelong learning takes place where learning takes place, then we have a more coherent story around lifelong learning. And when all of these different types of people can come together to share a space, I think there's a lot of exchange that can happen. Like if you think about it, we talked about vendors a little bit, right? You might have a vendor to teach coding, a vendor to teach about entrepreneurship. But among a school with 1,000 students, that's about 2,000 parents approximately. I am very sure some of them are entrepreneurs. I'm very sure some of them are programmers or whoever. How do we tap onto those resources to help this community serve itself
Yeah.
rather than always be engaging a vendor.
That's lovely. Thanks for sharing that. And I think my last question, for you is like, when it comes to children's well-being, right? Like whether it is through creators work or even through like Praxium work, when you saw all the different challenges that students experience, apart from students' interests in like what they want to do, what is something that you hope that that can be achieved, right? When it comes to children's well-being in a school setting, right? That is not achieved at the moment right now.
I'm still going to lean back to interest, that one way it can execute itself is through student interest groups and instead of CCAs.
So they take the initiative to come out. Okay, that's lovely.
Throughout the past years, I've also asked students about their interests, and I asked them, why not start a club or start an activity or a CCA around it? The common response you get from teachers is that there's not enough teachers to supervise, not enough students. If you start a CCA here, you will take away students from another CCA and then they have to close down and so on. So, and then the students will always be having this mindset of, I need to ask for permission. Teachers don't allow. But my point of view is, but why must they allow you? Just use your free time to work with other people on something you're interested in. So I think that's very doable. The question is, how do we encourage, accept, acknowledge, affirm, celebrate when people do that?
Yeah. Okay, so thanks for sharing all the perspective. And I think when it comes to community, I think it plays a very important role, and a powerful role as well, that we can come in to support and work together in partnership with schools, and definitely together with creator like Forte360 also hope to achieve this vision, that children's well-being, their interests, their strengths are all taken seriously, to affirm them so that it can be nurtured, like how your journey was as well. So with that, we have come to the end of today's podcast. Thank you so much for being part of today's guest. Thank you.